for me.
Blog Talk Radio.
This is the Jenny Hatch Show, and I'm your host. On today's show, my special guest will be Kristen Delahunty. She's going to share the story of her daughter, Indiana, and the effect that Effexor, the antidepressant, had on Indiana's life and on Kristen's life. Welcome to the show, Kristen.
Oh, hello there.
How are you today?
Oh, I was good. During your introduction, the tears started coming though, and I can just I look forward to sharing with everybody.
Great. Why don't you just give us an overview of Indiana's story, and then I'll just ask you a few questions after you share it.
Where it all began.
Yeah, just tell us the story from beginning to end.
Okay. Well, I had lost my mother when I was 27, and I was dealing with some issues with that, and so I had decided to go and seek some help from a doctor. And as I, told her what I was going through, and she suggested that I try an antidepressant to help me through things, and we had a lot of family history of depression, and so I decided that was something that I was going to try, and when I started taking the meds, it really did help me. It worked okay for my system, and it did take a few different kinds, tries with different medications to find out what worked for me, which was Effexor. And so as time went on, we decided to have another baby, and the doctor, my doctor at that time, told me that I should switch to Zoloft. So I was taken off of Effexor because they weren't sure of the effects that it could have on the baby, and put onto Zoloft, a low dose of Zoloft. And we didn't have any problems with the pregnancy or birth, or even there was no issues with my son Jake, and so we continued to breastfeed, and everything was fine. As time went on, and I was done breastfeeding, I decided to get back onto Effexor because I liked the way it felt with my system, and so I decided to do that. And then over time, a little bit of time, it stopped working, and so I'd up my dose, and I did that a few times until I reached, I was at 300 milligrams of the XR daily. Now, my husband and I decided to...
Was this before Indiana's pregnancy, while you were breastfeeding your son?
No, this is after I was done breastfeeding. I switched back to Effexor as soon as I was done breastfeeding.
Okay.
And so when we decided to have Indy, I had asked my physician, and it was a different doctor that I had, because we had moved, and I'd asked him, I said, this is what happened with me before. They took me off of Zoloft, and off of Effexor, and they put me onto Zoloft. Is that what I need to do? And he says, no, you're going to be fine. There's no study saying that it even gets to the baby, and you'll be fine. She'll be, the baby will be fine. And so I assumed that because, there was 3 years in between this that had gone by, that they had done studies, that everything was okay. He was the doctor, and I trusted that he knew what he was talking about. And so I stayed on Effexor. And for one, it's really hard to switch back and forth medications, because they are addictive, and they do work with your body differently. So to switch was not easy for me. So I did decide to stay on Effexor.
At the 300 milligram dose while you were pregnant?
Exactly, yeah. And he said I would be fine. And this is before that I'd been told that I would always be on Effexor. This is when they were changing them. They were upping my dosage, because I was thinking I should stop taking these drugs. those thoughts did come into my head. When you're feeling good, you're going, well, I don't need these drugs anymore. But physically, I'm addicted to them. And so I talked to my doctor about maybe trying to get off of them at one point, and he told me that I would probably never get off of these drugs because of my family history with depression. And so I just assumed that it would be a lifetime commitment from me, to be taking these. And so we ended up getting pregnant, and probably about halfway through my pregnancy, we found out that we had small diabetes, which this was my 5th pregnancy and my only pregnancy with gestational diabetes. And I just had a lot of problems with it, and they had to really monitor myself and the baby. And
at any point, had anyone told you of the side effects that were common with antidepressants? How many people developed diabetes on these drugs?
None. And even my OB, when my first visit with her, I had asked her about the effects, or I asked her about taking antidepressants during pregnancy, and she said I would be fine as well. There wasn't even a conversation after, after I'd asked her.
So the medical people are not linking the antidepressants with gestational diabetes?
At all, no.
Okay.
At all. The only time that I ever heard a doctor tell me that there was a problem with me taking these drugs is at delivery. And it was because of my OB was out of town at the time. Another doctor that was working was going to be delivering Indiana. And as soon as I went in, and I had gone into early labor before that, a month before. We delivered her a month early. But 2 months before she was born, we had gone into labor as well. And they were able to stop that labor. So when we went in to delivery a month early, they went ahead and were okay with it because, we were that far along already. They decided, and plus my blood pressure now was starting to become an issue. And
you'd had none of these problems with your other pregnancies?
No. I had really great pregnancies. I handled pregnancy really well. And so it was a shock to me to have these complications in this one. It was all new to me. Now the doctor that was on call, as soon as I found out that we were going to be staying at the hospital, I told my husband, I said, you need to get, because if I don't take my medications, I start to spin, and it makes me really sick. So I told my husband, I need, make sure you grab my Effexor. And as soon as the doctor heard that, he immediately was, he asked us, what we were taking. And so we let him know, and he was shocked. He was shocked to find out that my doctor hadn't said anything to me about it, that we shouldn't have been taking these medications because of the complications later on in pregnancy. You're supposed to switch, earlier on if you're taking Effexor to something else.
And this is the very first medical professional who indicated there might be a problem.
Yeah, the very first one, and the only one, and since then.
Okay.
And so we end up delivering, and we had complications. She wasn't breathing. Well, as soon as he had found out that we were on Effexor, he called down to the NICU and told the NICU to come up and be ready for when she comes because he called her an Effexor baby. We have an Effexor baby on the way.
So it sounds like the people in the NICU were aware that there was